Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a medical case that really makes you stop and think. A story that might just change how you look at treating complex patients. We're going to follow one person's incredible journey to get to the bottom of her health issues, showing what can happen when we shift from asking what is wrong to asking why.
And this is her. This is Melody. I want you to just take in her words for a second. That feeling of being broken, of being passed from specialist to specialist, with everyone chipping away at a symptom but nobody seeing the whole picture. I'm sure this story sounds familiar. It's the kind of patient who walks into your office and her case is the mystery we're about to solve.
So here are the puzzle pieces. And what a puzzle it is. We've got terrible tinnitus, chronic jaw pain, pain all through her neck, back, and shoulders, then add in life-threatening allergies, constant sinus problems, and the fact that even though she was an athlete, she was always getting injured. I mean, each one of these things points to a completely different specialist, right? An ENT, a dentist, an allergist, a physical therapist. It's the classic multi-system mystery. So where on earth do you even begin?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Where did it all begin? How could so many different problems, all seemingly unrelated, actually trace back to a single source? Answering this question is where Melody's case finally takes a turn. It's the moment the focus shifts from just managing this overwhelming list of symptoms to starting a real investigation for the root cause. And believe it or not, the investigation led all the way back to her birth. The source of it all, according to the book, was an undiagnosed tongue and lip tie. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How? How could something so seemingly small, something that didn't even cause major feeding issues at the time, become the blueprint for decades of pain and dysfunction? It sounds almost impossible.
Well, it wasn't one single event. It was a cascade, a domino effect that played out over her entire life. So that tongue tie? It forced her tongue into a low, forward position, a poor oral posture. Over time, that meant her jaws didn't develop properly. That led to crowded teeth and a deviated septum, which then squeezed her airway. And the final domino? Her entire body had to strain and compensate for that compromised airway every minute of every day, leading to this system-wide pain and dysfunction.
The book uses this great analogy. It calls it the toothberg, like an iceberg. What you can see, the stuff above the surface, are the obvious symptoms: crooked teeth, jaw pain, maybe some cracked fillings. But the real mass, the thing that's actually driving the problem, is hidden deep below the surface. We're talking about tongue position, dysfunctional breathing, posture, and that compromised airway. The takeaway for you as a clinician is pretty clear. If you only treat what you can see, you're not fixing the problem, and it's just going to keep coming back.
So just how complex can all this get? Take a look at this number, almost 40 million. According to the author, that's the number of possible ways dysfunction can show up across the body's 11 interconnected systems. It's just a staggering number. And it really drives home why a simple one symptom, one solution approach is doomed to fail in cases like these. The body is just way too complex for that.
And this complexity is exactly why the book is so critical of what it calls silo thinking. You know the drill. Treating the jaw, the sinuses, and the back as if they exist in totally separate universes. Melody's case stayed a mystery for so long because everyone was stuck in their silo. No one was seeing her as a single, interconnected system where one problem was causing a waterfall of others. Now, here's a really crucial shift in perspective. We all know the term sleep-disordered breathing, right? It frames the problem as being about sleep and what goes wrong at night. But the author argues we need to flip that around to breathing-disordered sleep. See the difference? It's subtle, but it's huge. It correctly identifies the root problem as a dysfunctional breathing pattern that's happening 24/7. Sleep isn't the problem. It's just when the consequences of bad breathing become most obvious. And that simple switch changes your entire therapeutic target. This quote really gets to the core of this whole idea. A symptom isn't the disease. It's a messenger. It's your body's alarm belt screaming that something is wrong. But what do we so often do? We treat the symptom. We shoot the messenger without ever stopping to read the message or put out the fire.
Let's apply that messenger idea to a diagnosis we see all the time: asthma. The book makes a pretty bold claim here. It suggests that what we call asthma is often not a disease in and of itself, but an emergency defense mechanism. It's the body's last-ditch effort to stop you from losing critical CO2 by overbreathing. So the bronchial tubes constrict, not because they're diseased, but as a protective measure.
And this leads to a really provocative critique of the standard asthma test, the FEV1. The argument is that the test itself can actually create the very condition it's trying to measure. Think about it. Step 1, you ask the patient to blow out all their air. What does that do? It purges the body of vital CO2. Step 2, the body's defense mechanism kicks in, constricting the airways to stop any more CO2 from escaping. And then, step 3, you measure the lung function. You might be measuring a state of dysfunction that the test itself just caused. It's a profound thought.
So why is the body so obsessed with preserving CO2? This chart makes it crystal clear. The air around us has almost no CO2, just 0.04%. But for our cells to work right, for hemoglobin to release oxygen into our tissues, our body needs a level of 6.5%. That is a massive difference. We have to make and hold on to pretty much all of it ourselves. When you see that gap, it makes perfect sense why the body would have an emergency brake to stop us from losing.
So let's circle back to Melody. What was the big breakthrough for her? It wasn't some miracle drug. It wasn't a newfangled surgery. The solution was simply a new way of seeing her problem. It was finding someone who finally stepped outside the silos and connected all those dots. The jaw pain, the bad posture, the breathing, the chronic injuries, all the way back to that one single root cause that started decades ago.
The book leaves us with this powerful idea about responsibility. When we talk to our patients about self-care, this reframes it. It's not selfish, it's about being your best for the people who count on you. And, it hits us as professionals too. We owe it to our patients to be at our best, to keep learning and connecting these dots. And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. The next time a patient like Melody walks into your office with that long, confusing list of symptoms, ask yourself this question. What is the hidden why behind the very obvious what? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.